Dear students, welcome to our lesson today in Communication Skills, Chapter 1, Communication Process. Chapter 1, Communication in Business. Our lesson today will cover the following points. What is communication? The process of communication. One-way and two-way communication. The purpose of communication. Barriers to communication. Overcoming barriers. Dear student, by the end of this lesson, you should be able to 1. Define effective communication. 2. Draw the communication process. 3. Differentiate between one-way and two-way communication. 4. Memorize the purpose of communication. 5. Understand how communication barriers can arise and how they can be reduced or removed. At the beginning of our lesson, I will ask you to look at the picture which represents a communication example and try to identify the sender, the receiver, and the message. To begin with, you need to know what does communication mean. Communication is giving, receiving, or exchanging information, opinions, or ideas either by written, oral, or visual media so that the message communicated is understood by two or more persons. Evaluation activity. You have 2 minutes to write the definition of communication. The process of communication. In order to successfully communicate, it is important to understand how the process works. Here are the 6 steps in the communication process. The beginning of the communication process involves the sender creating a message that they plan to send to another person or group of people. Next, the sender will translate or encode the message into a form that can be transmitted to someone else. For example, if you are writing a letter, you will translate your ideas into words. The message can also be non-verbal, oral, or symbolic. Afterwards, the sender should decide how the message will be sent. This involves selecting the most suitable medium or channel such as speaking, writing, electronic transmission, or nonverbal communication. Then the message will be received by the receiver. The receiver then decodes the sender's message. The receiver will analyze the message and try to understand it. Last but not least, the receiver will provide feedback in the form of a reply to the original sender of the message. The process then starts again with another message. Here is a summary of the communication process illustrated in the previous slide. During the communication process, noise may distract the process, resulting in the receiver getting a different message than the sender sends. Noise is anything that distorts a message. It can take many forms, including a radio playing in the background, another person trying to enter your conversation, and any other distractions that prevent the receiver from paying attention. Evaluation activity. Dear student, you have 2 minutes to answer activity 1.1.1, page 14 in the textbook. And two-way communication. In communication, we need to decide about the purpose of communicating with others. Is it for just sending information? That is a one-way communication. Or we need a feedback, that is two-way communication. To clarify the difference between one-way and two-way communication, we are going to compare between them in the next slide. In one-way communication, there is no receiver response, so feedback is not needed. But in two-way communication, there is a receiver feedback. One-way communication does not ensure accurate understanding of the message, so mistakes are possible, compared to two-way communication, which ensures more accurate understanding of the message, because the receiver will be able to give feedback and ask questions in order to understand the message better. An example of one-way communication: posting a memo for staff members to read. An example of two-way communication: staff meeting, where information is given and staff members ask questions and give their feedback. Evaluation activity. Dear student, you have 2 minutes to answer activity 1.1.2, page 15 in the textbook. Why communication is important in business? By communication, employees and managers can share ideas and information through sending and receiving messages and getting feedback, which will help in planning and decision making. In addition to that, communication helps in giving instructions and directions to employees. So it helps in explaining the ways how jobs are to be done. Besides that, communication between managers and employees helps in discussing and solving. Dear student, you have 2 minutes to answer activity 1.1.3 in page 16 in the textbook. There are many reasons why communication may fail. Information overload. When too much information needs to be delivered in the same time, then it creates overload and communication will fail. Poor listening skills, which may result that a message can be misunderstood. Difficult language. Use of jargon or technical words with the people of different profession can create confusion. Difference in belief, style, and society. Different people's perceptions are different. Thus, the sender may encode a message in his or her own way, but the receiver can explain it differently due to difference in perception. Physical and environmental barriers such as uncomfortable place, unhygienic room, background noise, poor lighting, or an environment that is too hot or cold. Another barrier is the lack of feedback. Without feedback, communication process is not complete. For effective communication, there must be a feedback from the receiver. Also, a wrong choice of channel is one of the main barriers to communication. For example, using a wrong channel of advertisement or conveying a message orally when a written letter would be more appropriate. Barriers. How can you overcome communication barriers or reduce their effect? You can do that by avoiding information overload, which means that the message should be clear and short. Active listening is another key skill to improve communication. In addition to that, try to always use a simple and ununderstandable language. Always be sure to choose a suitable time to pass information. Besides that, ask for feedback to check that the receiver has understood you correctly. And don't forget to select a proper channel for delivering your message. Evaluation activity. Dear student, you have 5 minutes to answer activity 1.1.4, page 17 in the textbook.
Every step in the communication process is necessary for effective and good communication. Blocked steps become barriers. The 5 most likely barriers to effective communication are listed below. 1. Information overload. 2. Poor listening skills. 3. Difficult language, use of jargon or terms, which are too technical, should be avoided. 4. Difference in belief, style, and society, culture. 5. Lack of feedback. The steps details I intend to take to remove these barriers are listed below. 1. Avoid information overload. The message should be clear and brief. 2. Develop listening skills. 3. Use a simple and an understandable language. 4. Select a proper channel. Use both oral and written channels when sending a complex message. 5. Taking follow-up action. Ask for feedback.
Dear students, the next part of the lesson will be for evaluation questions, so be ready. Question number 1. Answer these questions using the following communication process chart for Al-Andalus Company. 1. Who is the sender? 2. Who is the receiver? 3. What is the channel used? 4. What is the message sent? 5. What is the receiver's feedback? Let us check the correct answer for this question. The sender is the purchase manager. The receiver is the sales manager. The channel used is letter, inquiry letter. The message sent is purchase of office furniture. And the receiver's feedback was quotation letter. Question number 2. You need to reorder the following procedures for the communication process. 1. The receiver gives his or her feedback and expresses his or her reaction. 2. The sender uses a certain channel. 3. The sender has a message. 4. Many kinds of barriers interfere with the communication. 5. The sender is sending his message. 6. The receiver had the message. Let us check the correct answer. Question number 3 is a true or false question. Feedback is the receiver's response to the sender. And the correct answer is true. Question number 4 is a multiple choice question. Choose the correct answer. Anything that prevents understanding of messages is known as A. Channel, B. Message, C. Feedback, D. Barrier. And the correct answer is D. Barrier. Number 5. In the table below, there are some barriers in the problems listed below. Mention the barriers and how you can overcome these barriers. Problem number 1. Language, which is too difficult. The receiver may not understand jargon or technical terms. Problem number 2. The message is too long and contains too much details which prevent the main points to be understood. Problem number 3. The wrong channel is used, so the message is not received on time. Let us check the correct answers. Barrier for the first problem is difficult language, and we can overcome it by using simple and understandable language. The barrier to the second problem is information overload, and we can overcome it by avoiding information overload, that the message should be clear and brief. The third barrier is selecting wrong channels, and we can overcome it by selecting a proper channel. For these, please go over workbook pages 6 to 11. Dear student, by this we reached to the end of our lesson. Thank you for your attention.